Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're discussing the Omega Constellation Globemaster in stainless steel and tungsten. You can see this 2015 Basel World debut and purchase it on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right-hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch with additional accessories included in the sale, high-resolution images for your desktop, and naturally, complete pricing details for this Omega Constellation Globemaster in stainless steel with tungsten bezel. Now, of course, the Constellation name is an old and glorious one in Omega's catalog, and the 1952 Constellation with its iconic pie pan dial and the image of the observatory denoting its chronometer status on the caseback has been an enduring image that has captured the hearts of generations of Omega owners and collectors. But since 1982, at least in Western Europe and the United States, there's been a sense that the Project Manhattan or Griffin Claw Constellation really isn't in the tradition, the understated, elegant, and practical lineage of that first 1952 Constellation. It's a success globally in sales, but it doesn't feel like the Constellation to many. Well, in 2015, with the Constellation Globemaster, Omega rectified that deficiency. Essentially the revival of the geometrically faceted pie pan, complete with the caseback image of the observatory denoting chronometer status. This was among the charter classes of Maytas chronometers, or the new chronometer standard created between Omega and the Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology. Aesthetically evocative and technically superior, the watch is also easy to wear on the wrist. 39 millimeters across the round of the case, as you can see on my wrist. It's an easy one to wear because it also has a little bit of a cushion case profile, so it sits flat and it mostly sits square on the wrist. 39 millimeters from 9 to 3, not including the crown. The watch is 13 millimeters thick, which is reasonable for a watch that needs to fit underneath the cuff. And from lug to lug, it has a delightfully compact span of 46.5 millimeters. If you do want to dress it up with a Omega or aftermarket accessory strap, it has a lug spacing of 20 millimeters. As you can see, it features a very close-hauled drilling of the lugs so that there's minimal daylight between case and strap, and yet there is only a little bit of constraint between the side of the strap and the flank of the case. So it does have a little bit of swell and a little bit of flare. Not as much as you would expect given how integrated it looks, but be warned, it is there. I would say the watch could be worn easily on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters in circumference. If you wanted to wear it on a smaller wrist, you'd probably want a thinner, more lightly bolstered strap so you could pull it straight down. Now, the strap itself is of very high quality. As you can see, black. It is a semi-gloss rectangular scale alligator leather. It's generously bolstered so it matches the lines of the lugs. It actually swells to match the swell of the lugs. And you'll note monotone stitch, folded edge. It's calfskin and very supple with a natural grain on the underside. This feels like a broken-in strap straight from the factory. It's one of the softest and, quite frankly, most comfortable and probably most expensive Omega factory straps offered. Omega did not cut corners in the specs of the accessories for this watch, and you can see the same is true in the clasp. Polished flanks, satin finish down its center, Omega logo. It also features a minderless system, so there are no loops on the strap, no minder loops to take up excess strap length. The clasp itself tucks excess underneath the body of the clasp, and it features twin trigger action, so you must positively disengage it to open it. It can't pop up by accident. It's not friction fit. Now, of course, the watch itself is simple but finely finished. It's an execution that uses high polish sparingly and for maximum effect, almost like jewelry. As you can see, the majority of the metal is finished with a linear satin grain. There are polished bevels along the case flank that give it a little bit of definition and also provide a transitional surface between the tops of the case and hoods of the lugs and the flanks of the case. You'll also note polish on the case back, polish on the periphery of the tungsten bezel. It is impressive that Omega has managed to work tungsten like this. It also features a faceting, sort of like the fluting of Rolex's gold bezels. This is actually a finer intermediate distance. So you see the interstitial spaces, the actual width of the fluting is about half of what you'd find on a Rolex gold bezel. It's more finely textured. The imprint, the linear striations are more finely executed and more tightly spaced. It's the best way to describe it. It is a finer sort of tungsten sunburst of fluting and faceting. Now, if you look to the dial, you can see that it is an opaline silver, so it's a matte metallic, not a sunburst. It glows gently in the soft light of my light box rather than exploding. Now, all of the details of the dial, as you can see, the Omega logo and marquee at 12 o'clock, as well as the indices, are hand applied. They are appliques, not printed, and although it's difficult to capture the faceting of the individual segments between the hours, you can easily see that there is a downward cant or a downward angle from the center dial down to the minutes and seconds track outboard. That is, the center of the dial is relatively higher and the hour track falls away with a sort of faceted geometric face that defines the segment between each index. Now, the watch is loomed, so stay tuned for a loom shot at the end. It features a number of refinements, including a time zone functionality, so you pull the crown to the intermediate position without stopping the movement. You can change the time zone forward or backwards as you travel. You can drive the date forwards or backwards without hazard to the movement as you cross the international date line. And if you pull the crown out to extremity, which I will now do, you can hack the movement and you can stop it to synchronize precisely to the seconds against a reference time. Here you can get a little bit of a better sense of the faceting of the pie pan elements. You'll also note a smart transition or a bit of a bevel about the date window, so it actually has a little bit of a transitional plane rather than being shear cut straight down. There is a slope and a faceting to that aperture. Turning it over, you can see the Omega exclusive caliber 8900. Now, it is produced for by ETA for Omega, but it is exclusive to Omega, so you're not going to see this on Breguet, Blancpain, or Longines, only on this series, and it is the Matos chronometer standard, so not just the COSC standard, but beyond, including water resistance, winding efficiency, power reserve, anti-magnetism, and a fully cased-up chronometry test that encompasses a test of precision with the watch fully assembled and the movement cased. On Hack the Balance, you can see it beats away at 25,200 vibrations per hour. There is a full balance bridge and a free sprung balance architecture for shock resistance. The hairspring is Omega's Si14 silicon compound for anti-magnetism, over 15,000 Gauss, so effectively resistant to anything up to and including a particle accelerator or an MRI if your occupation demands. Now, the watch features 39 jewels, twin mainspring barrels, and you can see them beneath the barrel bridge, in series for 60 hours of power reserve, bidirectional winding, so it's a relatively silent and wobble-free winding system. It's not a unidirectional winder like you'll find in Patek, Jaeger-LeCoultre, or any Valjoux 7750. And of course, it is both a Matos chronometer and a coaxial escapement. So it has the tri-level coaxial system that finally realizes the potential of the George Daniels coaxial or tangential contact escapement. Several levels of pallets and escape wheels. The shakeout is that it requires less long-term maintenance and provides better short-term timing precision, the best of both worlds, and a little bit of exotic independent horology in a mainstream, highly warranted product. Also, and somewhat surprisingly, 100-meter water resistance despite the absence of a screw-down crown or a screwed-in case back. So if you were to throw it on a water-resistant band, perhaps to get a little bit less flare to the strap, perhaps to prepare it for fun in the sun this summer and spring, this is absolutely an aquatic watch. Short of diving, 100-meter water resistance is full-service water activity for summer as long as you're on a water-resistant strap. This is a do-it-all watch. Stay tuned for a loom shot so you can see just how much this watch can do. Okay, Omega Constellation Globemaster, beautiful in blue. See it in tungsten and steel by the light of day on our website.